like all, and then maybe it's just that like since we only meet once a week, maybe that's why I always like, because we were really good about the first like 4 weeks or whatever of it, but then you're always you're done.
Well, and honestly, I mean, even I had to send a note to the professor because I don't know if it's just that everything is going on, but like the mistakes I've been making are so silly,
Right.
like spelling typos, and
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
think it's that there's just a lot going on, and we're getting towards the end. And so then we're feeling anxious, you know, and we
Right.
don't always get to see our grades and work,
Right.
and, you know.
Right. And this class is actually quite a bit of material. I think we discussed this one of the other times, which is really surprising because I at first thought, you know how when you start off with the class, you kind of get the tone of like, okay, I'm going to see what you can kind of get a feel of what the workload is going to be like. And I actually thought my other course I'm taking right now was going to be a lot heavier than this class, but it actually isn't. I think there is more material, but we've been in groups, like big groups. And so all the work has been divided work. So it's like we're writing papers every week, but you're like doing just like sections, so you might be writing 2 paragraphs a week or something like that. So it turns out I think there's a lot of workload in this course, actually more than the other one.
There's a ton. And I mean, I really do enjoy the work, but
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like cramming it into 7 weeks has been brutal,
Right.
you
Yep.
know.
Mm-hmm. Which
But
I mean,
such is the life of an online student.
yes, and I think it actually really at the end of the day is more friendly to conducive to people who I mean, if you're a little bit older, I mean, like, cause I'm 30, basically 30. And so I'm still, and it's conducive in the sense I can still work full time
Yeah.
and still be able to do it. I mean, it's a lot, but it still allows me to work full time. And yeah, the 7 weeks at a time are pretty grueling, but hey, it gets it done faster too. So
And I really do. I mean, I truly enjoy it.
yeah, for sure.
That's what's exciting to me is that
Right.
I'm like, okay, you know, like I'm definitely putting in some really long hours, but the thing is I still like it. So that's a sign that this is where I'm meant to be right now.
Absolutely. Um, all right. For some reason, by the way, uh, I, for today's meeting, I can't, I had turned in for the last module 5, I turned in the PowerPoint checklist, you know, the PowerPoint we have to do.
Uh-huh.
I turned in, but for some reason, it's still showing it. And it even said assignment submitted, but still showing on my Canvas that it has the little circle with a line through it, like that it hasn't been done. And I even have like the screen. I always screenshot when it says submit assignment, just to make sure, like, you know, I have that. And I sent him a message about it, but regardless, it's not popping up, so I can't access module 6. It's like still grayed out for me. You know how you have to complete all the items in the section in this class to move on,
Oh,
and it's not opening.
wow.
So either I was thinking what we could do is either until that gets figured out. I didn't actually notice this till like yesterday. I didn't realize that it hadn't, like, that it's not registering, and so I don't know if it's a Canvas issue or whatever. But I was gonna say we could essentially, I mean, we could technically screen share too if you wanted. Like, you could screen share since yours is opened up right now.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just 1 second.
No, you're fine.
I need to. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell, this is one of my son's friends, and he's going to keep trying to FaceTime. So I'm going to get him to stop doing this.
All right.
And I totally can just share.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking originally. I was like, because I didn't realize till last night, and then I messaged him, and I haven't heard anything back yet from him on that. So
I'm going to this one right here. Okay.
There we go.
Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, but how are you feeling about your PowerPoint presentation?
Good. I'm not very good at the It sounds like you are way better at this than me, but like the whole like adding the I'm good, with like putting in the good quality quotes and then annotating on the quotes. But when it comes to like all the additional like media and stuff add to it, like that part, the part for me is the part that's like I don't know, like I'm not super original at making like the memes and stuff he's talking about. But overall, I feel fine about it. I think that um, I like a lot of the quotes I'm pulling out and stuff, and I feel like that's the extent, or that's the really important part of it is what he's looking for.
Yeah, I definitely think that I am sure that's what he's looking for is the content, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The I mean, as far as the images and the media content goes,
yeah,
I mean, I have had too much fun with it, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
I just randomly picked Star Trek
yeah.
because of, reading it once. And then I'm like, okay, it's going to be classic Star Trek. And
Uh-huh.
then I just put in all these goofy pictures and say silly things and, to try and make the content a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah, right. Which
But
is I sorry, good.
No, I was going to say, but also too, I mean, I'm really looking at using this as sort of the foundation for future projects and possible presentations.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You mean the skills you're deriving from it? Is that what you're saying? Like the
And the actual presentation
oh
itself.
itself. Okay, gotcha. I
So
mean, we were
I've been double dipping, I've been using it as this practice place to get feedback from him. So I've been probably putting in more than,
uh yeah. Which I mean, we were like encouraged early on. I know going when you're going through OGL, especially when you got like maybe midway and you're like, especially when you're moving up into the upper tier
yeah,
classes, to start saving everything you have. Like, make sure you have everything you do. Make sure you have a copy of it, all that stuff in class. So, like, because they're encouraged. I think in your what do they call it? Your capstone courses, which are going to be,
right.
I think which for me at least, I know you're going to be in New Zealand for those, right?
Right.
Whereas I think mine are coming up next semester. I'll be doing those, I think, which it's next semester you'll be in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that, yeah. Um, and so, I think when you come to those, I think they're encouraging, like, because I think they might ask for us to pull some of our old stuff too
Well,
for
and
that.
I've been saving every like presentation that we
Uh-huh.
get from the instructor. I mean, I've been just saving everything because I just, it's such a quick and great resource.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
So I'm thinking Daniela isn't going to make it.
Okay.
So
You
the
have,
say it again.
I'm looking at all your OGL tabs you have pulled up on
I
the top of
know.
your
Look
screen.
at, isn't that hilarious? I didn't even pay attention to that until just now. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, you have like a Google Docs and
Totally.
a Google Drive. That's awesome. You look
That's
like
hilarious.
a busy woman up there.
Well, and I'm taking 3 classes right now. Are you
Mhm.
taking 3?
I'm only actually taking two. Typically, I do three and three is what I've typically been doing is like session A three, session B three.
Yeah.
Um, I only had two this semester though. Yeah. Are they all OGL courses?
They are.
Okay, gotcha. Because I think I only have three OGL courses after this. After these two classes, I'm done. I think next semester, three of them. And then I technically have like one or two more classes to complete my minor as well. And
That's
that's
awesome.
so I might do that like session B, and then I'd get a minor out of the way too. Are you minoring in anything?
I haven't yet, but I think I probably need to look at that.
Yeah, mine's kind of not directly related to like leadership. I mean, it can. I mean, leadership's really broad. I think it could relate to almost anything. There's leadership in anything, but my minor is sustainability.
That's smart.
Yeah, and that's always just interested me. And apparently, Arizona is there's a huge outpouring for like sustainable energy, and water is a huge issue in Arizona,
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it? Right? You guys have water issues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
crazy because over here, we use water like it's nothing over here in the Midwest.
Oh, I know. And well, I lived in the Northwest before here where it, rains all the time. So I
Yeah.
think it's the same sort of mindset about water.
Hmm.
But I mean, I was reading an article that was saying something like in 2050,
Uh-huh.
Arizona or Phoenix itself will be uninhabitable
Really?
if we stay doing what we're doing. So like for example, right now there's a huge push for planting shade trees because they need to do something about how much it's a cement jungle, right?
Hmm.
We need more vegetation.
Yeah.
But I have to say too that it's definitely been rainier and colder. I mean, like today it's super, super cold and it's unusual.
Like,
Usually
what's super cold for you guys?
I think maybe today it's only going to be like 60 maybe.
Oh, really? Yeah, that is pretty a little chillier for Arizona. Yeah, it's like 35 here, but that's normal.
Is
At
that,
this like this time of year, this is super normal. I mean, we've already had snow once. Like, yeah. But
yeah,
yeah, that's I know Arizona and Phoenix specifically, you guys like pump your water. Does it come from the water gets like taken like delivered from a way outside source, doesn't it? Like water gets brought in.
well, a lot of the water comes from the Colorado River.
Okay.
And there's also, it's interesting because water rights are obviously a really big deal. And
Uh-huh.
because there was so much rapid growth and so many communities built, the water rights, there's problems with those in themselves. So even if there is water, who has a right to it is
Uh-huh.
problematic.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, over here, you come like in the summer, you go driving by anywhere on the East Coast, Midwest, you'll drive by someone's lawn and they'll just have sprinklers going all day and just shooting water, like watering the yard. Like I don't think that would happen probably out there, right?
Yeah, it's funny because my husband and I have been talking a lot about getting rid of our pool because we feel guilty.
Oh yeah, yeah, for just holding that water. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's
Anyway,
yeah.
it's interesting, and I mean, right now I'm going to be here, but I don't plan on staying.
In Arizona, you mean?
Yeah, in Arizona.
Where would you ideally see yourself going, or are you going to Austria? You moving to
Yeah,
Austria?
that's
Yeah,
exactly right.
that's the plan. Okay. That's
Yeah.
really neat. And like the whole, and he's behind going there too.
Oh yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then would you do that after your kids are older, or would you move the kids over there? I don't know how old your kids are.
Well, I have one that
Okay.
is almost 14 and the other
Okay.
one is only 11, and so an eighth grader and a fifth grader.
Okay.
And they want to go right now.
To Austria.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you've taken both of them there already, right?
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
in the summertime, we spent over a month in Vienna with family, and
Okay.
they both are, yeah, they want to be there.
And are they fluent in Austrian?
No,
Your kids? Okay. Are you?
no.
Okay. So, but now in Austrian is English like a second language, or is it pretty common that most people
It's
speak it?
it's really common. And as a family, we've been working. I mean, in Austria, they basically speak German. There's
Okay.
some slight variations.
So is Austrian not really a language? By the way, I said Austrian. Is that not really a language?
No, it's
No,
German.
no, it's German. Okay, that is what they speak. Okay, yeah. It's probably its own dialect. I'm sure it's got its own kind of like differences. I'm sure.
Well, and especially, in Vienna, they're very proud. The
Hmm.
Viennese people are, and there's some dialect differences, but also I think like just slang and
Hmm.
there's a subtlety in the accent that
Hmm.
makes it not as harsh as what you might hear in like Berlin.
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah, it's very harsh language.
It is, and it's a really interesting language to learn. And in our country, because so many people don't know much other history outside of Hitler,
Right.
people don't like hearing the language.
Right. Yeah.
It
Makes
has
sense.
all this negative connotation to it, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of like how I think of, like, say, for example, Germany, like learning about, like, here in America, we're learning about Germany based off of really what you learn. The extent of Germany is tied to World War II, right? World
Exactly.
War I and II. That's what most of our connotations. So every time I think, like, I can't help it, but every time I think of Germany, and I've heard Germany is like a beautiful place, but
Hmm.
every time I think of it, all I see is overcast gray skies and like ruined buildings, like just destroyed, like
Right,
ruins of cities. That's
right.
literally what I think of Germany when I think of it. Because anything we would see would be like World War II depictions of it during the war, and you might go into, I don't know if Munich was one of the cities that probably got beat up pretty bad. And I don't even know if there was that much fighting in Germany. I know obviously in Russia there was fighting. Um, France. I don't know if ever fighting happened in Germany. I think it probably did.
Yes, it did. And, it's so interesting because I think this really highlights something that I have been really cognizant of, which is that our systematic approach in
Mm-hmm.
America to teaching history and just about other cultures
Mm-hmm.
is so narrow minded, and it is so biased and feels like it's steeped in brainwashing versus material facts.
Well, I agree, and because I think if you look at it, the only reason it seems like in America when we learn American history, the only reason these other places are brought up, or these other, like, Germany, the reason why we everything we learn, let me put it this way, everything we learn in American history is because it's because we were involved some way or another. We only learn something where we have some kind of involvement with it, I think. And I think that's what creates a bias. We don't just strictly learn about a place like Germany if we take it by itself and just look at it without the aspect of, oh yeah, well, Germany was also part of World War II, and the US was involved in, we don't just look at Germany as Germany is.
Right.
We look at it from how is the US also involved in this? Like, and
That's
I
right.
think that's probably where the bias starts coming in too. So yeah, it's
I
kind of
think this
crazy.
is particularly sensitive for me, I think, because I mean, I talk to so many people who will, I'll mention Austria and they think it's Australia, first of all, which is just totally bizarre and offensive. But all
Yeah.
the same, people have no idea the involvement that Austria had in the war and
Hmm.
what was really going on there. I mean, Hitler is from Austria,
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
He's
Austria just gave themselves to Hitler. I
right.
mean, he had a very established foothold in that country.
Hmm. Yeah.
And this was on the heels of another big part of Austrian history, which was the Marx movement.
Oh yeah. Karl Marx. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
when we were there this summer, they were celebrating the 100th anniversary of Red Vienna, which is the huge Karl Marx movement. And,
uh-huh.
you know, that is really sort of the backbone of especially Vienna,
Uh-huh.
where socialism is, I mean, there it's a petri dish for what socialism does and how it changes and forms a society. And I mean, I should be really clear that I'm a democratic socialist, but
Hmm.
there it's very clear that it's effective when it is used appropriately and modeled appropriately and has that democratic component to it.
Do you think that takes because of, do you also think that takes uh because my always thought on that was I see like very much merit in it, and I think in some countries, and if you look at Scandinavia, they're heavily socialist too,
Yeah,
and
right.
there's some of the wealthiest places in the world right now. But I also, part of me always thinks too, it takes in part a buy-in from all the people. Like it has
Yeah,
to take an overall like buy-in from the people. Whereas like when you think here in the U.S., like sometimes I'm wondering, like, man, would that work here? Just because of like like you have to have everyone has greed, I think, but I think it would have to take a amount of a little bit more selflessness as a whole of people to do that. And I don't, and just sometimes I wonder if like us as a country here are there to be able to do that. Like,
And I think that's the important point that you're touching upon, which is the cultural difference. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, in Vienna specifically, right, which is a huge city,
Hmm.
they don't want homeless people around. So they
Yeah.
don't mind paying taxes so that people have shelter.
Right.
You know, there it is very much about being and looking beautiful and kept and
Hmm.
nice. And so that equates to we pay more taxes so that we can have these things.
Right. Yeah. Which, and then I guess the counter argument of why people dislike that here, I guess the idea that is because people are like, why do I need to work for somebody who's not going to?
Well, and
And
our culture is about what's in it for me
exactly.
instead of seeing themselves as a part of a society. Which
Right.
is why this whole nationalist
Hmm.
philosophy is really taking a foothold, because in our culture, it is about what's in it for me. I mean, we even will use other human beings, like
Uh-huh.
in slavery,
Hmm.
to get what we want with no regard.
Right. It's the I think it's the it's I think the fear people have about it though is if more people will be like, well, if I'm going to, and and I don't fully agree with this because some people make the argument that if we are going to if we're going to I'm gonna say if we're going to there are going to be the people who are, and exists, there's homeless people by choice. There are people who exist who are like that. Granted, they're giving up a really quality lifestyle by doing that, but some people argue, well, they don't have the pressures and the stresses of being in
Have you
the.
ever met anyone, though? I mean, statistically speaking,
Uh-huh.
people don't choose that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I don't think it would be a high level of people who would actually buy. I'm sure there are a very, very rare breed of people who maybe would do that, but you can't count them as the whole like statistic. Maybe they're not even a statistic at that point.
Well, yeah, and this is where it becomes such a slippery slope, because people are under this assumption that there is even a person who chooses to
To
be
do.
homeless.
Yeah.
That simply isn't true. I mean,
Hmm.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is not based on the things that we think would be nice.
Yeah.
It is literally, as a human being, whether you are mentally stable or not, these are the things that your biological person is going to require
Right.
in
Right.
order to exist.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Um.
so, for anyone, I mean, even somebody who is mentally ill and homeless,
Mhm.
they don't choose either of those things.
Right.
And
Right.
for us, I think the importance is, if you can't find a way to feel compelled by just wanting to help another human being out, feel
Hmm.
compelled by the fact that you bring yourself
Hmm.
some safety and security and pleasure by making sure that there aren't mentally ill, drug addicted, homeless people in your community.
Right. Well, there's one really interesting, and if we're gonna push that a little further, is the whole idea of look at um, how we've always seen with prison how that works. Someone who spends time in prison, and then the idea of someone who spent 20 years in prison comes back to society doesn't can't really reform back to society because it's a long time to be out of society, and then end up, you always hear about people who purposely make their way back to prison because, like, well, here, at least now, like, they've became so used to that, they're like, here, I can be back, and it's not a glamorous lifestyle, but I think for some people, they're like, literally, like, I can wake up, I get fed, you have like the some needs met, obviously, because we're not going to, you know, um, in prisons, we're not going to just starve the people to death, and we're not, that's typically, in some they probably do. I don't know. I haven't been to all of them. Some they maybe do, but
Interesting
there
though,
has been that thing. Well, you
because
said no.
really, it the there's more than this is going to sound. I mean, it's more than semantics, but when we talk about reform and look at
Mm-hmm.
reform,
Yeah.
That is not at all what our system is built on. Our system is literally just built on punitive consequences.
Right.
Period. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there might be some programs in there where someone could get an education or, have some counseling, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is that to say that they need reform or to try to help someone who was not able to function in the society that they were placed in means that there is a problem with the society.
Right. Yeah.
The number of people that are in prison is reflective of the fact that that is not at all something about human beings, is not translatable to what it is we're trying to enforce by handing out these punitive consequences.
Right. Absolutely.
I worked with a woman who started an organization to help other women when they came out of prison.
Yeah.
And I mean, first of all, what is astonishing is the number of women that are in prison based on things that men have done,
right,
that they were part of.
Yeah.
So, for example, she was 52 years old, I think, when she went to prison, and she was the secretary for an Edward Jones representative who committed money laundering, but it was all under her license.
Oh, yeah.
When she was in prison for a month at that point and got breast cancer and had to deal with breast cancer and a double mastectomy in prison.
Wow.
At 52 years old.
It's crazy.
Now, reform is irrelevant to her. What does she need reform for?
Right.
So now her whole life's work, because she had been in the financial business her entire life, she's only 52, but now she's had all of her licenses stripped away. She can't practice her trade anymore. And she had no idea these things were going on. And so now she dedicates her life to helping women when they come out of prison, because our system is not built for reforming people, especially not women. And so the thing is that it's not as if places with democratic socialist governments don't have problems. Obviously, that is part of
there's no perfect
as well.
You're not gonna have a perfect
you can't.
It's just
people. But even like there's remote villages, right, where they're operating, and when somebody's mentally ill, I mean, or like let's say a child is born with Down syndrome, the village takes care of the child so that the parents can have breaks, and this child rotates around and has to work on the farms and has to do these. It sounds so primitive, yet at the same time, I think that's the beauty of what primitive functions and actions are. They're based on innate human abilities, desires, demands. And in leadership especially, I think this is something that's so critical, because our conversation with people has to be about changing the focus from what's in it for them and just having them be solely focused on themselves and seeing the benefit of what happens as a team.
Right.
Because there are so many things that you can accomplish as a team that you will never be able to do solo. You literally will not be able to do it.
Yep.
And so I think that that's a part of our leadership abilities, that we have to start changing this mindset in the workplace, where Americans spend a lot of their time, in the classroom where we are telling people what to think and do, and because a lot of people are not critical thinking anymore.
No.
And so if we make this about, okay, I'm going to lead with this idea of I'm going to help everyone on the team recognize we are not functionable without all of us participating.
Right.
I think we could start to change the mindset.
Hmm.
But when we have everybody who want the, a Lamborghini, a Lambo, and wants to make millions of dollars on the backs of people that are barely getting minimum wage,
Hmm.
how are we ever going to have a conversation?
It's true. That's very true. That kind of reminded me, you had mentioned of the leadership of helping each other as a team. Um, and the different and you've probably had the OGL course. I can't say exactly which one it was, but where you touched into like what type of leader you are, the leadership
Yeah.
styles. And
Yes.
I actually work with someone else who is doing the same exact degree as me. I don't we're not on the same. He's behind me, but anyways, he sent me a text the other day, and he was like. I think you define as servant leadership, which
Mm.
would be which I think for the most part I kind of do embody that, the whole idea of like I very often I'm concerned with what I'm doing, with what needs to be done, but I'm also like equivocally as concerned with like other people's work and helping them, making sure that they're like getting there and they're getting there mentally okay and whatever the case is. And so I was just interested to know, do you feel like you have an identification on what kind of leadership style you would be?
Well, I
I mean,
sort
and it could be a blend, obviously.
I think it is a blend,
Uh-huh.
especially because so much of my experience in my career has been about hit the target, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a very numbers driven person.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think my leadership style uh, is very much got those components of servant leadership, although I have a tendency to want to shut out people's personal lives.
Yeah. Oh, shut it out, you said?
Yeah.
Which there's very much merit in that, I think, though, too. I run into almost too much of that I think we all run into that in the workplace.
And I think that's programming. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's ridiculous. How can people's personal lives not be have a huge impact on their work? I mean,
Right.
this is a programming that I have, you know, been subject to, I think,
Mm-hmm.
that says work is work and personal life is
Just
personal life.
personal life.
And
Yep.
that's ludicrous.
It is.
So I say this to you because I think I'm really changing my leadership style.
Mm, okay.
I also really like a leadership style where I am seen as in the trenches with them. Um, I like being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I like that role of coming up with
Hang on just a sec, Don.
course.
Just sorry.
No, really.
I will. I will. Hey, Don, just a sec. I just got to make a really quick phone call, okay?
It's no problem at all.
Okay.
I'm going to push stop real quick or pause. Okay, there we go.
Got it? Okay. Um, um, so with this next module, I know we were screen sharing earlier. Obviously,
Go
I
right
came
back.
go back to okay. Yeah, I came out of it eventually because I was looking at something else. Um, so is this obviously I haven't been able to look at. Is this a group? Is this another group project we're bringing here?
Actually, it's a discussion.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Um, so I loved this, this first line, which was challenging the process by turning to music or art or reading
Mm-hmm.
something or browsing a library, going to see something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me, that was so exciting to read because I think this is so important for people to understand, and I have been really sort of screaming this from the rooftops.
Hmm.
This whole concept of challenge the process has so many different faces. I was talking to somebody the other day who said, I'm not going to go out and march. I'm just not going to go out and protest. So, what can I do? And I was so surprised that somebody thought that the only way they can have a voice about the things that they don't like is going
Protest.
out and protesting.
Yeah.
Like, even the protesting itself isn't effective if people aren't writing letters and making phone calls and asking people to vote. You know what I mean? Like, there's a
Yeah.
whole range. Read a book. I met somebody who's every person she can get to read this book, White Fragility, she's like buying them a copy and sending it to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the importance of this idea of challenge the process. Is there's no one way to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, like you're saying, sometimes, how we always say knowledge is power. Sometimes just informing people is its own protest in its sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And as this says here, like, I mean, and obviously, as here it says on that first prompt, turning to music, we hear protest in music all the time, and that's a major protest if you're doing something that is making a statement in music and say it becomes very widely known, mainstreamed. Like that's a big, platform. So
That's right.
any of the arts really, like it's saying here. So
Well,
yeah, that is
funny that you say that about the arts too, because this is the other thing. I'm talking to all these moms who have kids my age or my kids' age, and everybody's so sick of screen time, and I'm like, but what are you doing about it? I mean, I'm lucky because I live by ASU, but it's been really fun to take the kids on the little commuter bus, and we go down to ASU and we go to the art museum and we walk through campus and we go into the student hall and get sandwiches or coffee. Or I'm like, you have to take them and do something. You can't just look at them and say stop looking at the screen.
right. Exactly. Yeah, that's not you gotta change the environment they're actually in. Like you can't
Yeah.
just because your environment just around home all the time is just catering to that.
And it's about challenging the process, not just saying
Hmm.
you need to change it.
Yeah, just don't do it. Yeah, exactly. You have to be proactive in showing them like the benefits or what else is out there. You have to be proactive about it. You can't, like you said, you can't just say, oh, just don't do it.
That's right.
Like I expect you to just sit here and not do it at all. Just like if you hand your kids, if they're sitting at home and they have their Xbox in front of them, you can't expect them to just want to stop doing that if you come up and just say, here, read this book instead, turn that off. Like that's not going to probably work very well. Like you have to, I mean, it's like you said, you have to challenge the process. You have to put effort into it yourself. Like you have to,
And
yeah.
I think that's just something that we in our society dislike, this concept of hard work so
Mm.
much, to the point that we literally will not do things if it seems like it's hard.
Too much work. Well, and see, that's not to go back to what we were talking about. That's sometimes why I do wonder the cultural difference here in the U.S. is why sometimes aspects of socialism would be hard, just because people don't the idea that people don't want to work hard. And I feel like in a social society, you have to be willing to work hard, and sometimes you're going to be working for other people. And so, how in a society where we don't like if we see someone else, like this happens at work all the time, where I'll have someone come up to me and they're like, why should I do this? Because this person wasn't doing, they weren't working as hard as me. Why should I go and do this now? Like it's that
I
whole
want
idea
you
that
to understand that my opinion on this is that those people that are having those types of thoughts and feelings
mhm,
are doing so because, again, they're not having their Maslow's hierarchy of needs met.
right.
So, for example, somebody who is working really hard in a socialist society that doesn't have to worry about healthcare, isn't making a wage that is not livable,
Yeah.
Isn't working 2 or 3 jobs, didn't get to graduate from high school or college. I mean, the garbage collectors graduate from college there.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah.
I mean, I know people in Vienna who have a tremendous amount of wealth, and their son has gone to a very good school, which is a public school, and he wants to be a plumber, and they're so excited that he wants to be a plumber because that is a noble job.
Yeah. So what you're saying is in Vienna and Austria itself is that like some jobs that we hold in low regard here, like over there, it's almost like the idea of just like whatever you do, you should like be respected for what you do and more because we kind of the classic like, oh, you're a janitor, like that's not a respectful job.
That's right. And I mean, I don't know if you remember me talking about that on your headstone there, you will put down your profession.
Yeah.
Father, son, janitor.
Right. Exactly.
And the point being really that I'm trying to drive home in this conversation is because I often find myself making people feel like I think Austria is better.
Oh, yeah.
And I certainly don't mean to push that agenda or idea, but more the idea that when people have their needs met, they don't mind doing the hard work.
Right.
Because what else are they going to do? They don't have to go home and worry about how they're going to pay a medical bill on $14 an hour. I mean, it just isn't, it's just isn't problematic. Now, I will also say that people don't live in, giant houses in the city, and there's not everybody has cars, and there's a different feeling too about the environment. And that in itself totally makes more of these concepts attainable as well in terms of a democratic socialist organization. Right? It's like a team. When you're working with an online team and you're trying to lead them when you just meet through video chat, that's a far more, you've got to do a totally different type of planning than if you get to meet with your team every week on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. In person. Right. I think that this is what's so exciting to me about the organizational leadership courses and conversations is that if we can, as leaders, try to take this and, drill it down to what we do in the workplace and then expand it out by developing other leaders and getting them to take it into their communities, we can challenge this process in a far more collaborative way and have a greater effect. I mean, I hear everybody complaining about Donald Trump. There's no denying that many, many people do not like what he is doing. Yeah. Which means that if they take their power back and recognize that they can challenge the process, that they literally could do that, it is really an acceptable thing to do. Right. Yep. It is going to be hard work. And I know you're working 2 jobs or you're, trying to figure out how to pay the bills. You can't worry about what, some government's doing. We have to change the systematic programming that we've been given in the workplace, in politics, at home. I was talking to some friends who've invited us for Thanksgiving dinner, and I don't do the cooking in our house. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. And my husband really enjoys it. Yeah. And, one of the ladies said, well, what are you going to bring? And I'm like, oh, you're going to have to talk to Mike. She's like, what do you mean? You're not coming? And I'm like, oh, I'm coming.
Yeah, I'm just not making it.
I'm not making it. Why would I do that? Yeah. If I make it, we're having Little Caesars.
Right. and why should you have to be the one to like always, yeah, and
Well,
there's no
and honestly, you should see the way people look at me that I'm going to New Zealand because I have children,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Which,
and
by the way, I think that's really awesome that you're doing it, especially since you said with having kids. But like, just a side note, like I'm a firm believer in still everybody, as much as like having like kids, like you have to give a lot of yourself when you have kids. You have to become a way more selfless person. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I always believe I'm like you are still your own person, and you still need to like do things to better yourself. You need to do things to like I think it's important to step back and still cater to like your own
individuality.
individuality. Maybe that's a good way to say it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will tell you, I mean, it is through being a parent that I've had to really understand and grapple with modeling the way and,
Right.
you know, recognizing that I'm creating a carbon copy of myself. So I better
Hmm.
bring my best self.
Right. Yeah.
They
Exactly.
deserve that. The world deserves that. I brought them here. I
Hmm.
need to, which has helped me also in leadership.
Hmm.
It's interesting. I definitely tell everyone don't have any children because our earth can't take it in
Right.
terms of bringing other humans here. But the opportunities that you get for growth and having to care or think about a young person
Hmm.
is, you can't be replaced by anything else.
Do you feel like it's very transformative for somebody to?
Absolutely. I have a friend who never had kids, and I said, I just want you 1 day a week for 2 hours to go and volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club.
Uh-huh.
And it has totally changed so
Hmm.
much about the way that she sees herself.
Hmm.
She sees what she has to offer, her gifts and skills and etc.
Yeah.
But more importantly is it's shown her that there's these young people that need somebody to help them figure out what to do in this shit show
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
life.
Hmm.
And at the Boys and Girls Club, somebody that's getting paid $10 an hour to just watch the kids that are there after school is not going to do that.
Yeah.
But a business leader who's never had children and was curious as to what it was like, going 2 hours a week has been huge. Even
Hmm.
her employees have noticed a difference in her.
Right. Right. Wow.
Anyways, I think what I really like about this first question too was, if you it says, I'm sure you can find a lot more material on your own if you only start pivoting.
Mm.
And this is where I think this conversation of, like, the Boys and Girls Club, or those ideas that you can clearly see define you and help you become a better leader and
Hmm.
to challenge the process, but are the more unorthodox approaches in terms of how we systematically think about challenging the process, like the protest.
Hmm.
You don't have to go out and march and protest in order to protest.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And
There's just.
please go ahead.
Oh, I was just doubling down on what you're saying about, yeah, the multifaceted ways that we discussed earlier of challenging the process of, if you are protesting, of what you can do. And it's just, I think that's just the thing that people don't realize. It's like we've been trained that when, and a lot of things we do, that there's just one way to do it. There's um, one thing defines, there's one definition for everything. And um, like I saw something that was like, the whole term surfacing of being politically woke.
Yeah.
I saw someone talk about like someone was talking about how there is a danger in what it's like, because as a society now we are defining exactly what that means now. Like you have to be this and this to define to be that. And someone made the comment, they're like, well, how, like the whole idea like of, and it kind of goes into the whole idea of like of, I always feel important for people to be kind of like free thinkers for themselves and be able to think on their own outside the mass influence of other people. And maybe, you know, and I'm like, if you are free thinking and you come to the conclusion that you agree with the mass public, then that's absolutely, you know, refutable. But if it's the idea of that you go into something and you just, you know, the classic like, you know, I'm going to pull up Fox News and whatever I read there is going to be what is. That's my opinion now. Or, you know, and if we're going to go to the counter side, there's probably other people on the other side who are guilty of going and looking at one thing, like you having to be able to challenge a process and not be able to just choose one thing. And, you know, at in a country like in our country, we are kind of, you're kind of at the mercy of what the media gives you. You have to gain your knowledge of kind of what the media is, but then also we live in this internet age where like you have to be able to have the discipline to know what you're viewing, know like, and have the responsibility in, you know, like all the time. And I feel like maybe I've mentioned on one of our calls before, I'll hear my mom come up, my mom will approach me about something and she'll be like, oh yeah, did you hear the story about this and this? And I'm like, I'm already hearing it. I'm like, well, this sounds interesting. Like, and then I'm like, did you? So I'm like, did you read that on Facebook? And she's like, well, yeah, it was someone posted it on Facebook. I'm like, who knows where that came from? And that's like a challenge we have with as students too, by the way, is with um, you know, if we're ever trying to pull material and information for a paper, like having to know it's in this internet age, it's so hard to know where you're pulling it from. Um, and something that's refutable. So it's just kind of the idea of like being able to have that skill of being a free thinker, of being able to, because I think you have to be a free thinker to effectively challenge the process, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And a critical thinker,
And a
right?
critical, yeah,
There used to be a point in time where people would say the Inquirer is not news.
right,
What
yeah,
happened to that ability to decipher those things? Facebook is a prime example of the lack of critical thinking now. I mean,
right,
of course, there's always going to be stories or information, news, etc., that is questionable.
yeah,
But you're right. The problem is that do you question it? Do you question the validity, or do you just gobble it up as truth?
right. And you've heard the term clickbait, probably. That's like an
Yeah.
internet term now. Yeah, and that's kind of like, that's I think what people fall victim to now on the internet is they see something, they see a headline or what, because usually the clickbait is like the headline of something, and they might see it and it literally is a viewpoint that like caters to how they feel about something, like literally perfectly caters to how they feel. They click on it like, oh yep, that's like, they might, someone might not even read the article. They're like, okay, I'm gonna repost this on Facebook now because this is, you know, not even checking, not even questioning the validity of this, just boom, it seems to be something that aligns with how I feel. Boom, there we go. And it's just like, and then, you know, who knows where that's coming from. Like,
Well, and at the end of the day, I think that the most important factor here is that choice, you do have to have choice,
mhm,
but also you have to recognize that the importance of it and your responsibility to it.
mhm,
If we look at Malala, right?
mhm,
I mean, to think that somebody could become a hero in the 21st century by fighting for girls to be able to go to school, like,
mhm,
I don't understand that. I don't understand how we have come to this.
right,
At the same time, it's so important for us as free thinking people, so to
mhm,
speak,
mhm,
to see around us how much of what we think about or the choices we make are based on other people influencing us, not our ability to critically think.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying this also, I should be really clear. I think about this with religion, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in Malala's case, that's exactly what's going on too. This is based on people reading a book and thinking it says that girls shouldn't go to school, and they adopt that, live by it, build an entire country and community on that. I mean, it's like slavery. Isn't it hard for you to wrap your mind around the fact that people were sold, bought and sold,
Mm-hmm.
human
Yeah.
beings?
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing, is I think we have to really dig down and look at, when you challenge the process, so much of it is not about being vocal or, you know, doing something to say, I want to challenge the process in terms of using your voice. It can be in simply your actions.
Mm-hmm.
To say, I am not going to subscribe to this behavior, and literally walk away from it.
Mm-hmm.
If you do nothing else, right? I mean, it's like Fox News or the Inquirer. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody says to me, I heard it on the news, and they say they saw it on Fox News, I am going to say, this conversation is over because you think
Mm-hmm.
that's news.
Right. Yep. Yep. It's
I went and heard Gloria Steinem speak, and she said, she was just like, here's what we all need to recognize. 70% of us think that women have rights. 70 or more percent of us think women should have equal rights. And then there's 30% that don't.
which is a huge number of people still, I think,
It's
for
a
that.
huge number of people, but also
Uh-huh.
the point is for us to recognize, stop wasting your time with the 30%.
Yeah,
Focus on the 70% and make them stronger, make them
that's true.
more empowered, make
Yeah.
them have the ability to choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what's important about leadership, is to recognize that there are going to be people that are naysayers. They're going to be negative. They're not going to agree with your methodology. But it is important to keep focusing on the practices, keep modeling the way, keep encouraging the heart, keep, you know, showing that you totally trust in this
Right.
through your actions. Which is how people like Malala become heroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was shot,
Yep.
almost died.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to still say to yourself, I wish I wouldn't have gone through that, but it isn't going to change the choice I've made, which
Right.
is, I have a right, or I want this, or we can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm just scrolling down because I was looking at the time thinking, okay, wait a minute, we got to get to the other stuff too. Oh, okay, if time permits, contrast the leaders. Well, we've done a lot of this actually.
Yeah. I think just naturally our conversation leads to hitting on a lot of these points. Um,
Well, and that's why I really wanted to share my personal information in that last email with you guys, because I
yeah.
feel like we have really good discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make myself available because I get so much from these discussions, that if you come up on a paper or you're working on anything else in your program, I would love it if you called upon me to talk something through or to read a paper for you or anything to that effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we're still all a team here even after we leave. So
It's so true. And I think that for me, especially because I do have an agenda in this life of
mm-hmm.
things that I want to accomplish, this is a critical component to it, is being able to reach people that aren't just in my community, but we have something else in common, and find a way to build the power of that commonality to do something more than ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you have to work Black Friday?
Yep. And I work Thanksgiving too.
You do?
It'll be all right. My family actually doesn't do. We actually don't do Thanksgiving until Friday. I have a really big family, and so we typically do our Thanksgivings on Friday because I have like my it's always with my mom's side of the family do it, and my mom's side of the family is really big. I have like 27 first cousins or something like that. So big
Wow.
family. Yeah. But anyways, and then but I actually will be working Black Friday for that, so I'll miss that too. But I'm used to it. It's not that bad. And I think me and you talked about it, is Thanksgiving. You said is a holiday you don't exactly support, right?
Yeah.
Is that you don't support it? I think there's the good thing about families coming together. That's good.
Mhm.
But like um, but here's the thing though too, really quickly about holidays though is a lot of times like the thing with Thanksgiving though is how many people actually really sit down at Thanksgiving and think about like
Was Jackson murdering everyone?
well yeah and thinks about what's behind it. No one really. So I don't think
That's
people
the
really.
problem.
Yeah, and maybe that's the problem with it. Just like now, like with like I think Christmas is obviously the same way. Most people like Christmas really all you think about is oh your family's getting together and we're gonna open gifts. You don't think about what the roots of it are. No one thinks about what the roots of any holidays are. Even as far to say as like on 4th of July, I don't really think about, oh, this is American Independence Day from Britain. I don't think about it. I think about, oh, like here's all my friends, we're hanging out, whatever the case is, and we don't put thought to it. Now, so I mean, I guess at the same time, if Thanksgiving is, I don't know. I'm like, part of me is like, I guess if you're just using it as a reason for you and your family to come together, maybe in some ways that's an okay thing, just because your family's getting together, and I think having family time is a good thing. But if you're getting together and thinking of it as like like this is such a great American thing or whatever, which is we obviously know the origins of it. It's not pretty at all. I don't know.
Well,
I
the tricky one, right? And I
yeah.
mean, for me, I think about, I mean, members of my family. So that would be my parents, my sister. I mean, somebody was saying talking about politics and religion shouldn't be allowed on Thanksgiving. And I'm sitting there thinking, then I'm out
Yeah.
because that is all we should be talking about right now.
Yeah. We're in a what I've talked to other people about. We're in a very, if you like it or not, we're in a very transitional stage of society right now. It's very clear it's happening. So it's just like if you like conversation or not, it's gonna happen. Like it's kind of inevitable. It's kind of it's what's needed to drive change. If you don't have it, then it's just gonna go fall right back into the same old. Yeah.
That's right.
So
Well, and Thanksgiving for me is always been an enjoyable time because I don't think there's as much pressure the
mhm.
way that I feel about the other holidays like Christmas, where you can just get together and have food.
Yeah.
And you know, I I also think that for me, it's about, if you don't like being with your family, then it's this obligation.
Yeah. To be with them. Yeah.
It's torture.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Some people we all know those people who are like hate Thanksgiving. They hate meeting up with their family, and it's yeah, which is sad. I mean, ideally, I mean, in a perfect world, you would hope that everybody
really,
would.
though, is it sad? I mean,
Mm,
you're
yeah, I mean,
connected to them through blood, but the
yeah,
family and the relationships that you form that are like family with the people you pick.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can, yeah. I mean, you can have Thanksgiving with quote unquote maybe not your blood family. Like, yeah, you can definitely
Right.
every, yeah. I mean, I do feel like ideally, if if you are you have parents who birth you, and I would hope that they're going to be great people who are very impactful in your life and are going to be there for you. And that's what I'm saying. I think ideally it would be nice that if everybody's family was cohesive. And I mean, just like the whole world view of if everyone just got along, I mean, it's that whole thing. Obviously it's not realistic. It's never going to happen.
And that's the thing, is that I think this is where I am challenging the process in terms of all of these societal norms and pressures that come from the what you're supposed to do, think, or feel.
Right.
I work really, really hard to be a positive influence and to have a relationship with my children.
Yeah.
My parents did not do that.
Yeah.
And I don't have any interest in hanging out.
Right. Yeah.
And so I also don't want to make it that I feel obligated to do so just because they birthed me.
Right. Right. Exactly. You should want to do it because you want to. Like, you feel that, yeah.
Right. And, I am working really hard for my children to want to have a relationship with me. I do that every single day by treating them kindly and being loving and doing things that show them that I am a fun and great person to be with.
Right.
My parents didn't do that.
Right.
And so I think too, part of this whole concept of Thanksgiving is unraveling not just the premise of the holiday and how gross it is for us to not talk about why we have said this was a great day.
Yeah.
But to also unravel this idea of the way that we see ourselves in these communities, teams that we have established.
Yep.
Anyways, I suspect that you're going to have a great time because it's going to be very busy at work.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's going to be very, yep.
Which is so bizarre to me in itself that an organization like Starbucks, right? And people will tell you that it is insane that they could make so much money off of coffee on a holiday when people are supposed to be with their family.
I mean, I would say Thanksgiving is probably a top 3 busiest day of the year for us. I mean, people, Yep. People flood in and even more people flood in. And what happens is you get the people who are at their Thanksgiving though, or they're on their way and they're getting every single person who's there coffee. And so they're coming in, they've got 15 drinks per person walking out.
Exactly.
So and I'm sure, we close at 10 o'clock. So we go all the way to just regular hours. And so I'm guaranteed it'll be just people flooding in the whole time. So, and I mean,
people say that's wrong.
Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, and Starbucks does it the right way too, because there are some people, who, like, even I work with, who are like, I would prefer to be with my family. There's some people who want to be. So, we usually ask, like, okay, who wants to do this and for me, ideally, like, to me, I'm the kind of person where, like, I do enjoy my family time. So, if it was for that my family did Thanksgiving on Thursdays, then I probably wouldn't work. But the fact that we just don't even do it on Thursday, we typically do on Friday. But so for me, it's like, yeah, I can work Thursday. I don't care. Like, I can work it. Literally, everyone's just going to be like, my parents are going to be at their house just sitting around, like, doing whatever, like it's a regular day. So I can work, but so, there is that taken into consideration, because to some people it is important and you have to respect that.
Absolutely. And if you work to do that, then that's great.
Yeah.
For me, I make the day off from school, work, etc., mean something else than sitting around and pretending like what Thanksgiving is based on is okay.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
But that's my challenge, the process in my little leadership as a parent, that I'm like, yeah, you're not just going to subscribe to this crap because you're going to make a hand turkey at school and not talk about all the other things that have gone on.
Right. Well, and that's the whole idea of, like, arm your kids with, like, the knowledge of what the true thing of Thanksgiving is. And at that point, as a parent, that's all you can do. And then at that point, then they're given the choice of how they feel about it. And so, and that's the problem, is I think in our society, in a lot of things like that, traditions, we don't give the choice. We just say, this is important and you will accept that this is important, kind of. So you just have to give them choice, and then, you can only do as much as you can do. And then, and I think you would probably agree, you don't ever want to be like, and because, you would be just as wrong for being like, you are not going to, you should never celebrate Thanksgiving and you're not going to. You'd just be just as wrong as someone who says you will do it. It's the idea of giving them the knowledge and giving them the letting them understand both sides, and then giving them the choice of what. Yeah.
That's right. For the longest time, my son wore swim trunks and cowboy boots to school. And my husband's like, seriously, he's just going to wear this to school? Like, that's okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. He
Yeah.
fully understands that no one else is wearing that.
Yeah.
Until he chooses to.
Yeah.
Who says it's not okay?
Right.
He
Exactly.
and he's the decision maker.
Right. That's awesome.
And I think it's so important for us to have that mindset in every component of our life, especially
Mm-hmm.
in leadership. It's like going to someone and saying, I need you to do it this way. You can only do it this way, when they could successfully accomplish the mission
Mm-hmm.
in a different way. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Otherwise,
Right.
you're just creating a problem that never needed to exist.
Exactly. And what works for one, and maybe that way they want you to do it, the reason why someone's asked you to do something a certain way is because that's what works for them. And that's fine, but you can't expect it to be uniform across the board for everybody.
That's right.
Yeah. So you have to allow people to challenge the process their own way.
And for me, this is always about the core element of any conversation is, if people have a choice and
Mm-hmm.
the ability to get the resources to make an educated choice for themselves, I
Yep.
think there's a starting point.
Right. Exactly.
If you take that away,
Mm-hmm.
all hope is lost.
Yep. I agree. Absolutely. So do you, so I was going to say, I was like, your Thanksgiving plans, but do you guys typically not in your household celebrate it then?
Well, so a lot of times we'll either we pick a different country and make the food
Oh,
from that
ooh,
country.
that's fun. Yeah.
This year, my husband's friend is the captain at the firehouse.
Oh,
So
okay.
years ago, all the firefighters are making a very traditional Thanksgiving, and
Yeah.
they're going to take the boys on some calls and,
Oh,
drive
that's fun.
the fire truck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, you guys, you definitely defy the traditions of Thanksgiving, but I think that's really cool.
I'm the same with Christmas. I don't
Yeah.
enjoy that holiday either, but I
Yeah.
really love my dog. And so my kids were like, we love Christmas. What if we call it, my dog's name is Piper. So
Yeah.
they said, Mom, what if we call it Piper Day? Would you like it then? So we get
Oh,
out the Piper tree and
oh, yeah.
we get Piper gifts.
Right. Right.
And, I loved that they did that, because again, that shows the creativity, right?
Uh-huh.
Of taking what they do love about it
Yeah.
and turning it upside down to say, let's take out the things we don't like.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, so do you feel like we hit over most of the things we wanted to?
I think so. What do you
Okay.
think? Feel
I
good?
think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great.
We went for almost a good hour and a half. Obviously, we had like a little like
Exactly.
3-minute pause in there, but yeah.
So this is it then.
Was this the last meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Because we're going. Yeah, this is the last module, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
If you want to meet next week, or if you want to send your PowerPoint presentation, I'd love to send you mine and have you edit it.
Okay. Yeah. If we feel like it,
Availability.
we feel like we want to kind of do like we'll like keep in touch. If we just make a little ad hoc meeting on that, we can decide to.
Great.
And I'll keep an eye on it. And if you feel like you want to do it, I am more than game to do that for sure.
Perfect. I'll send you guys an email with this video.
Okay. Sounds
All right,
good.
Well, you take care of yourself these next few days. Don't work too hard.
I'll try not to.
Take care.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.